So now we're at the halfway point in the Premier League season, and I thought this would be the perfect time to do my updated Premier League predictions based on what I've seen from each team. I guess maybe I could have done this at the end of January to see who invested in the January window, because I think that could make a difference. But we are generally exactly at the halfway point, with most teams playing 19, some 20 games so far. So what I'm going to do is not just my updated Premier League predictions, but I'll also be reacting to my predictions from back in August in this video, because from each position, my previous prediction is there for Southampton. In August, I predicted them to come 20th. The current position in the league for Southampton is 20th, and my updated prediction for Southampton is 20th. So going and starting in relegation, then we're going to move all the way to who I think is going to come first, top four, all of that stuff. I'm going to give you my updated predictions, and then you can also see on screen where I thought they were going to finish at the end of the season, because at the beginning of the season, back in August when I did my predictions, because I tell you this now, I predicted Forest to finish 18th. And I've had a stinker there. We'll dive into that. But Southampton, the 20th, I predicted them to come 20th. I still think they'll come 20th. I think that one's pretty spot on. I think that was one of the easier ones. Leicester are 19th. I predicted them to come 19th. I still think they will come 19th. There is talk of them doing some loan deals, actually. They're in talks with Man United, Ruud van Nistelrooy, and maybe bringing in some youngsters. But the quality in the Premier League, the step up from the Championship to the Premier League is a huge step up. And I just felt that at least two of the three promoted sides were going to go down. The only one I thought could just stay up is Ipswich. And while Ipswich have had a rocky start and they're still in the relegation zone, I think Ipswich have had many games where they've actually looked right and not got the points. So I'm going to predict Ipswich to finish above Everton. And I'm putting Everton to get relegated, which may be an unpopular opinion because they're building this nice stadium. They're too big of a club to get relegated. But they've got their money, so I just don't see them investing in January. I think Sean Dyche is a good manager and he's doing the best that he can, but they don't have the best squad in the world. Like Branthwaite, very, very good player. McNeil, good player. But they're just lacking when it comes to goals. They can keep a clean sheet every now and then, but they really lack when it comes to goals and going forward. And I just think that might cost them compared to the other side. So I did originally predict Everton to finish 17th. But having watched them play, I'm not impressed by them as well. I predicted them 18th, even though they're 16th in the league. So some might think that's a bit harsh, but I think Everton will just go down, and I think Ipswich will just stay up. Now, I was a bit ambitious, maybe predicting Ipswich to finish 15th, but I thought Delap and some of the signings they made in the summer were really good additions. I'm a big fan of McKenna. I know he worked at United. I've got a bit of a bias there, and I feel that Ipswich's style was more like to stay up than maybe a Southampton. Southampton were more trying to be expansive and attack you, where Ipswich do like to counter-attack. And I thought the Ipswich style under McKenna could be more suited to the Premier League. And I think Ipswich will just stay up. I do. I think it will be close. But I think they've got actually a fair bit of quality. They beat Chelsea, they drew to Manchester United. They're giving, they drew to Villa, probably deserve to win that game. They give a lot of teams a difficult game. You see the big teams play Southampton and Leicester, and they just get ran over. And some of the big teams have ran over Everton, although to be fair to Everton, they had a few 0-0s. But when it comes to Ipswich, they've been in it nearly all their games. Bar Newcastle beating them 4-0. That's the only game where Ipswich have been thrashed this season. 16th, Wolves. Now, Wolves, I believe, are on the verge of signing a new centre-back. I forgot his name. I think he's from Ligue 1. But obviously, Wolves going forward, very good. Strand Larson, good player. Cunha, unbelievable player. Nori, good player. I think João Gomez, Andre, they've got some good midfielders in there. Lamine has been solid for them, but they lost Kilman. They've had defensive injuries. I think Mosquera's out. Where Wolves' issues have been is at the back. I mean, they gave 3 penalties away in one game. They've made silly mistakes at the back. I think one of the worst own goals was at the West Ham game. Wolves have the quality to stay up with a new manager with a boost. Wolves are good enough to stay up. I predicted Wolves to finish 13th, as you can see, back in August. They're currently 17th. My update prediction is 16th. I think they're too good to stay up. I think if they can get that defensive reinforcement in, I actually would probably put them 15th if that signing gets confirmed. But they're too good to stay up. They've got some really good players. I think they will stay up. I know they've just about got out of the relegation zone now, and they're on the up, but they've been very unlucky in games that they've lost. unlike other sides. Crystal Palace are put in 15th, which my previous prediction had them 11th. And that was based off how good they were, the back end of last season, maybe a bit biased in there, because I don't quite think they did enough in the transfer window when you lose someone like Elise and Anderson Anderson and Elise were huge losses. And they probably didn't do enough in the transfer window. There's talk of them looking at a couple players in the transfer window as well in January, which definitely could give them an advantage. But I think they've sort of got a bit better lately, Crystal Palace. They've got an easy run of fixtures. They're starting to play into form. Eze's got a bit better lately. Wharton's going to come back. They might bring additions in. Gay's obviously a solid player. Lacroix has been unbelievable. I think Crystal Palace have really picked up lately, and I think 15th, it's been a slow start, and I think they're capable of finishing higher than 15th, but they're really starting to, get better. They're 16th now. Updated prediction is 15th. I did originally predict them to come 11th. West Ham had a bit of a stinker here. I predicted West Ham to come 19th, and maybe if Lopetegui sacked 9th. Maybe if Lopetegui sacked, West Ham worked their way up the league, because they spent a lot of money. And to be honest, I had a few question marks around the Fulkrook signing myself. And I said maybe they could have gone for better options. I thought Todibo would be a really good signing, but he's just not been played by Lopetegui, and I think he's better than Mavropanos. But they've not been great. West Ham beat Man United 2-1, and I tell you this now, Man United played well in that game. And under Ten Hag, we didn't play well in many games. They've been poor, and I think Lopetegui needs to go. They're quite easy to beat. The big teams have beat them. Man United could have scored about 5 goals against them, but they were lucky we can't hit a barn door. I think Lopetegui's got to go, surely. I know it's early days, but they spent money. They backed him, and they just don't. It's not even like they look good. I just think they're going to come 14th, but I thought they would come 9th. Brentford, I predicted them to come 15th, which I thought at the time I was sceptical, because I said they've lost Ivan Toney, but I knew Mbeumo was going to step up. I know Wissa's a top player, and I spoke particularly about Mbeumo back in summer and how I rate him. Obviously, Damsgaard's really impressed me this season for Brentford, and I think Brentford, I put them 13th. They're currently in 11th. And the reason I've put them 13th is because as good as they are at scoring, they are a bit susceptible to conceding, and they don't have the best away record. But I think Brentford could finish anywhere from 9th to 14th. They're very going to be comfortably, probably borderline top 10. I think there's only going to be about 3 points between about 9th and 14th in the league this season. I really do. And I think Brentford have shown this season that they're a very good side going forward. And Mbeumo, absolute baller. They don't need Toney. They've got some very good players. Previous prediction in August was 15th. I've got an updated prediction 13th, but part of me kind of wishes I predicted Brentford to finish 12th and maybe Fulham 13th. I was very sceptical about swapping them, but the only reason I've gone Fulham ahead of them is because I predicted Fulham ahead of them in the summer. So I predicted Fulham to finish 14th back in summer. Now, Fulham, I said, good squad, good investment. I thought Smith Rowe was going to be a good addition. He has been. And some very good additions, Sander Birds. They've made some good additions in the end. They've got a solid squad, good manager, and they're currently 9th in the league, which is crazy. But I do think they'll slip back down to 12th. I think what Fulham have done really well is defensively, they're very difficult to get at. Anthony Robinson, again, another good player. They've actually, I think when it's XG against, they're ranked 4th in the league for that. They're quite defensively strong. I know they've got some easy fixtures coming up, but I'm going to go with 12th place for Fulham, who are currently in 9th, but I did originally predict them to finish 14th. Brighton, I thought, would drop off this season despite good investment in the summer. Big fan of Mats Wiefer. Big fan of a lot of the players that Brighton brought in as well. Believe has really come of his own this season. I've always rated João Pedro, unbelievable player. Matoma's a good player. I think Van Heck's been good. I think Brighton have a lot of good players in there as well. But I have to say, Matt O'Reilly, I think, could be a good signing as well for Brighton. I like the midfielders. I like the choice. Belieber, Wiefer, Matt O'Reilly. I know Wiefer hasn't been at his best lately, but I said, they've lost De Zerbi. They dropped off a bit last season. The injury sort of got them. So I predicted Brighton to finish 12th last season. Now, Brighton, there was a point a couple of weeks ago where Brighton looked like they could finish top 6 again. They were unbelievable. Well, probably over a month ago now. But they have dropped off a bit recently, and they've had a few injury issues and all of that. And while they're 10th in the league, I'm going to predict them 11th, because I think some of the clubs that are currently behind Brighton are going to pick up the season. And some people will say maybe it's biased because Brighton look a lot better than Man United, and they deserved that. They really deserved that point versus Arsenal, and they're currently 10th in the league. I predicted them 11th, but at the beginning of the season I predicted them 12th, as people may say is harsh. And maybe it's because we drew to Liverpool yesterday. But I just think United won't finish 13th. I think we'll get back into the top 10. I did predict us to finish 6th at the beginning of the season. I didn't have high expectations, despite what I thought was quite a good window. I was happy with the signings. And Agate's been unbelievable. Euros look good. Mazraoui's been very good. But we're 13th in the league. We've not been very good this season. I don't think it's going to be a great season because the players will be learning Amorim's system. We just lack a wing back. I think if we sign a left wing back that's really attacking like Nuno Mendes, I really think we'll comfortably finish in the top 10. But if we don't sign a wing back or we don't sign anyone, I see us finishing about 10th. I think we will improve with time under Amorim. We will get better. I think Amorim's a very, very good coach. He's going to need time. And I think the players are better than 13th at United. I just think it's the work rate and the missing chances. We're like 4th for XG in the league, but we're like 15th for goals scored. So we've just not had that luck either as well. But we're currently 13th. I think we'll finish 10th. I did originally think we'd finish 6th, which I was disappointed for even predicting us to finish 6th. So the fact that I'm predicting us to finish even lower than 6th, yeah, it's not the best position to be in. Aston Villa, and this was my controversial one, but I predicted them to come 7th. I know everyone was predicting them to come 4th or 5th. I predicted Villa to come 7th. I thought they were going to have that drop-off. Being in the Champions League, big player like Camara has been out. I think he's back now. Unbelievable player. Anana, Tielemans, they've got some good midfield options. But players like Leon Bailey that I thought were really good last season, they just quite haven't been at the level this season. I don't think Watkins has been as good this season. Duran's been really good when he's come in. Rodgers has obviously been really good. They do look vulnerable to conceding, but they do look good going forward. They're currently 8th in the league. I'm predicting them 9th, which could be harsh, especially because I've got Tottenham above Villa, which might be controversial. And I was debating it either way. But I have a feeling that the other teams above Villa are going to have just a good run or a good end of the season. So I think there's only going to be 3 points between about 6th and 9th. I think Villa could finish 6th. They could finish 7th. They could finish 8th. They could finish 9th. They're 8th in the league. I did predict them 7th, and now I'm predicting them 9th after seeing them. And I don't think they've been bad. But I have a feeling that Spurs, when they get their players back from injury, are going to get a lot better. I think Spurs are surely going to sign a centre-back in the January window. I think with Van de Ven and Romero's back, they're going to get a lot better because I think that with Ange, he's got a really young squad and crazy amounts of injuries. I think Spurs are having a Newcastle season. Now, I actually predicted Newcastle to come, I think, 4th in 2023, like I predicted Tottenham to come 4th back in August. And then they got all these injuries and they're at that point where they're slipping down the league. But Newcastle then, towards the end of the season, when everyone came back from injury, they went on that run. And I think Newcastle finished 7th in the end. And it only was because United won the FA Cup that Newcastle didn't get back in Europe. But I think Tottenham, they're going to pick up towards the end of the season. Gray's a good player. Bergwall's looking a good player. The young players sort of being moulded in. I think Mikey Moore will be back. Yang's coming in. Obviously, can't super rely on them. But Odebear, I think just him as a profile was needed. You know, then you talk about just the injuries, Van der Ven, Romero, the stability that brings. I think if Tottenham can sign someone, ideally, I think left back or a left centre back that could play left back and have some luck with injuries, I think they will get better because Tottenham are near the top for XG, they're near the top for goals scored, they have one of the best goal differences in the league, which suggests that while they're in 12th now, they probably will finish higher than that. My previous prediction for Tottenham was 4th. I didn't predict the injuries that they were going to get, and I did say when I predicted them to come 4th, this is me assuming that they might go and sign an experienced winger because they need that extra firepower and attack, and they get a lot with injuries, but they haven't. So in that case, I'm predicting Tottenham 8th. This might be a controversial one, but I'm predicting Bournemouth to finish 7th. And that is because I think, one, Iraola is a really good coach. But two, Bournemouth have a very, very good squad, in my opinion. Obviously, you talk about, like the Evan Nilssons, the Semenyos, Kirkes, Huijsen. There's some really good players at Bournemouth, in my opinion. I predicted them to come 10th, and I actually said that Bournemouth, I think, had spent the 5th most amount of money in the league in the last 3 years, or 6th. I can't remember. They've spent money. They've got a good manager. They've got an ambitious project, and I think they will. I think they can finish 7th. They are currently 7th in the league. They deserve to be 7th in the league. I predicted them 7th. When I predicted them 10th, a few people was like, "Oh, 10th looks a bit high for Bournemouth." And I said, "Look at Bournemouth's squad. Look at the investment. The fact they've got players like Huijsen, who might take time to be moulded in, and he did, but now he is. He looks really good. And look at the manager they had." I said, Bournemouth have it to break in the top 10. Maybe 7th is a bit high. Maybe I should have put Villa 7th, just considering what Villa did last season, and probably do have better players. It's just that, Villa are playing in the Champions League, and they've done very well in the Champions League. But this might be unpopular, but I'm going with Bournemouth in 7th. I've been really impressed with what I've seen. So Nottingham Forest are currently third in the league, and they've been absolutely unbelievable. Chris Wood, Aina, Milinkovic, Murillo, all really, really good players. And Langer's starting to come into the form. Anderson, who they signed off Newcastle, looks really, really good. Obviously, Gibbs White's a good player. Hudson-Odoi's had good moments. They've got some good players. They know what they're doing defensively. Only Liverpool have a better XG against than them record. They're defensively very compact. They've caused all the big teams problems in the league. I've predicted them to finish 6th. My previous prediction was 18th, which is definitely my biggest stinker on the list. It's just that last season they were so poor, and really, I felt that with the money they spent on the players they had to stay up last season. But when you watched them last season, they were so poor that I thought they were going to go down. And I said maybe they won't. Maybe they won't, because I think they've got some good players and some good signings. But they were massively underperforming last year, which is a massive stinker that I predicted them 18th back in August. But the third now, I think they will drop off from third, as good as they've been, as much as they deserve to be third. I think they will come 6th, which is mad, because when you look at Forest right now, they're levels ahead of Manchester City. But I do think Manchester City will come 5th. Now, people are saying because Man City have won 2 games in a row, are they back? I've watched Man City's games, and they're still pretty crap. Obviously, they've had easier games. They've won 2 in a row, this and that. But when you watch City, they're still not particularly convincing. They were obviously really good versus West Ham, but they win the games they were dropping points in. And even some of the games they won, they weren't looking great. They weren't having that dominance or sustainability. And I guess with City, when you spend the money you have, when you have the quality players you have players like Foden, De Bruyne, where you can play crap and win you a game. But I don't think City get back in the top 4. I think they stay 5th. They're 6th in the league. I did predict them to finish 2nd. I think they come 5th. Rodri's not back. I think that, they've won a few games now, but I don't think they'll be able to get that consistency, because they don't look particularly good. I mean, again, it depends on, will City invest in January? That's going to make a massive difference. And also, they could get a points deduction, which could put them further down the league. There is possibilities they could get relegated. They could get expelled from all competitions if found guilty in the FFP cases. The court trial concluded back in December last month. There's an expectation that in January they're going to drop if City are going to be relegated, or the punishment, or if they're going to get a points deduction. There's an expectation in the next few weeks that they're going to drop that information, but it could drag on and on and on. But there is generally a possibility that Manchester City could get relegated as well, which would mean that then Everton would stay up. There you go. But 4th, Newcastle. So I predicted Newcastle to finish 5th. They're currently 5th in the league, and I think they're going to come 4th. I think they're better than Man City. They don't have European fixtures. I think they're gelling together. They've got the confidence. I think, yes, it depends on injuries. I think if they did go and maybe they've got Botman and Shah back, which will be massive for them. The midfield is good, but they're going to need investment, of course. Long-term right winger, long-term right centre-back, because Shah, his age, goalkeeper potentially. You could ask for another midfielder, get rid of Longstaff, get someone else. And I think Elliot Anderson would have been great for you guys if he was about. You've got really good midfield 3 now, but I think Elliot Anderson in there would have been really good as well. But I think Newcastle, they're 4th. They deserve to be, they're 5th in the league. They deserve to be where they are. To win 6 games in the Premier League is difficult. They gave Liverpool a tough game. They've beaten the big sides or drew to them, taken points off them. They've played good football. Isak is unbelievable, most complete striker in the league. Anthony Gordon's back on form. Murphy's been good. Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, fantastic players. Lewis Hall been the best left back in the league. Newcastle play some really good football. They've got some really good players. They don't have to worry too much about the fixture list. I think, again, it depends on injuries. But I said last year, don't sack Eddie Howe. Newcastle had a crap season last season, but it was because of injuries and the issues they've had. And I've always said don't sack Eddie Howe, because he's doing a very good job, and he does have some very good Newcastle players. And I predicted Newcastle to come 5th. And people are saying, why did you predict Newcastle to come 5th? Because I knew that they weren't going to have probably the injury issues they had last season, this season, because they weren't in Europe. Even though they didn't invest in the window, I felt that Newcastle had the ability to come 5th, because they had one of the best underlying numbers in the league last season, despite coming 7th. When they are good, they are good. When they're bad, they're not the best. But I think Newcastle will come 4th. I think they will finish above City. Part of me thinks Newcastle could come 3rd, because if we're going off the last couple of games, Chelsea have massively dropped off. But I think this is Chelsea's blip, and I think they will respond to this blip and get back into winning ways, because they look really good earlier in the season, scoring lots of goals. I did originally predict Chelsea to finish 8th back in August. For me, I think if Chelsea finish in the top 4, that's an unbelievable season for them, because I thought Maresca coming into a side that did finish 6th, but needs a lot of work on. I thought maybe he'll come 8th in his first season because he's a little bit different to Poch. He's got to change up the style. And he's currently in 4th. I think Chelsea have been good. I know they've dropped points the last couple of games. I thought they did enough to beat Palace and they made silly mistakes. And they need to put away those chances to go 2-0 up and not bottle leads. But I do think they could get back in 3rd place above Nottingham Forest to do. I think they could potentially get a run of form and wins. When you've got players like Cole Palmer, you can't rule Chelsea out. In 2nd, I've gone with Arsenal. I predicted Arsenal to finish 1st because I felt that Man City might drop off. And I predicted Arsenal to finish 1st because they took Man City all the way until the final day last year. And they've done more investment than Man City in the summer. But that investment Arsenal have done, Calafiori, Marino, Sterling, hasn't paid off fully. I like Calafiori, Marino, but it's not paid off fully. They've not really caught City and they haven't had luck with injuries. Obviously, Timber being back is like a new signing for them. Wanyeri, Miles Skelly's coming in, obviously really improving them, but they've not had luck with the Odegaard injury, the Saka injury. You know, they have had Gabriel out for a couple of games, fitness issues, but they've just not been as good as Liverpool. Liverpool have that cutting edge when they've got players like Salah in attack. Liverpool just have more talented attackers than Arsenal, and I think that's what Arsenal struggled compared to Liverpool. They don't have players that can win the game in that moment. Even if Liverpool aren't at their best, they have a Salah that can win the game in the moment, and I think Arsenal lack those moment winners or that extra bit of quality to get them that win in a difficult game. You know, they're drawing a lot of games. They're not losing, but they're drawing a lot of games, and they don't have that player that's maybe necessarily finding them the winner. I think if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be disappointed to be in 2nd after learning how bad City's drop-off is, and this being Slot's first season. You clearly need a winger. You clearly need attacking investment. I previously predicted Arsenal to come 1st. I do think they will come 2nd. Sadly, I think Liverpool will come 1st. I predicted them 3rd because it was Slot's first season. He hadn't got any backing, but I thought that Liverpool had a very good squad and Slot was a very good fit for the squad. That some people predicted Liverpool like 5th and Man United 4th, which is crazy. I always felt that Liverpool were going to have a good season when you look at the quality within the squad and the quality of players that they've got. They are currently 1st in the league. I do think they're going to win the league. They're 6 points clear of a game in hand. But sadly, they also just look better than everybody in the league. They're top for a reason. You know, I know they weren't great versus Manchester United yesterday, but take that away. They've played good football. They've been the best team in the league. They've got the best defensive record, the best attacking record. They play some of the best football in the league. They've got the best player in Salah, the best centre-back in Van Dijk. I think Liverpool win it. Maybe they drop off and fatigue a bit like they did in March, April last year. But Arsenal haven't shown enough to me to think that they're going to catch Liverpool. And I'd rather Arsenal win the league than Liverpool, but I've not seen enough when watching Arsenal play to think that they can really catch Liverpool. Chelsea are too early in the rebuild. City are off it. Forest just won't do it. And Newcastle, they're good and they're in great form, but can't see it happening. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. These are my updated Premier League predictions. I tried to power through this. Thank you for watching. Bye.